Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you guys for joining us today. We're getting into the thick of September. The leaves are going to be falling and be done soon. I'm sad. I don't want winter yet. I genuinely enjoyed the summer immensely, and I felt like it was really good weather, and I just want it to last for as long as possible. Anywho, today I have Jacques here. He has an interesting story for us. I need to give a heads up though. This is going to be a little graphic. If there's kids or people that are a little bit squeamish or maybe have had a traumatic experience similar to this, we're going to be talking about an accident, car accident. So you've been warned. You might not want to listen, and that's okay. So Jacques, tell me about you.
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure.
No, it's great to meet.
I'm a high school teacher by trade. High school science, mostly chemistry, physics, a little bit of phys ed, a little bit of math thrown in sort of thing. So that's my background from way back in the day. And over the last, since 2012, I've been into personal development and getting used to, okay, who am I? Who do I want to be? And what sort of things do I need to deal with my life, and trying to get better.
Why that year, 2012?
That was going through a tough marriage, and it was heading towards a divorce, and I was struggling with me a lot. So that's where I started taking some counseling sessions and starting to look at myself a little harder to see what's my role in that not playing out very well, and trying to get better and be a better human being and be a better father for my kids. And all those little pieces of personal development that I really started to dig into.
And it's funny because when we were younger, like that wasn't a conversation that our generation had. Like nobody talked about that. Nobody would say, oh, I'm going to my counselor today. And now, like my kids are like, it's like they're proud of it. It's so different the way that people dig into their emotions and think about, their genuine happiness in life.
Yes, absolutely.
Which should be actually taught like the minute we're born, because it's essentially what it makes us be a happy individual.
The things that you believe actually are retained in your brain before the age of 5.
Yeah.
A lot of the things you went through as an experience as a child create the belief system that you grow up with.
It's those roots.
Yeah, exactly.
The foundation of what we are, and when we're older, we do look at them, and I think that's great that you are doing that. So 2012, you're digging into you.
Yeah, I did that for quite a while, and then 3 years ago, October of 2021, my world got dumped upside down. And this is where the whole story of what happened. It's personal development's one thing, but to go through a traumatic experience resets everything, and I was not prepared to deal with the fallout of what happened.
So why don't you set us back 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's October the 6th.
It's coming up quick.
Yeah, it's almost the 3-year anniversary. It's a Monday night. I'm traveling to Winnipeg on the number 1 highway to go see a real estate developer and to do some training with him, because I was in real estate at the time. It's gotten dark. It's 8 o'clock at night in Manitoba, and it's pitch black, no moon, so it's a moonless night, and I have not eaten yet. So I'm in the left-hand lane of the highway looking to pull into a gas station that's on the north side, but it's also, remember, post-COVID. So my thought is this place even open? Right. It's by itself, there's no town, so its lights are on a lot of times for security reasons. Nobody's walking around, no vehicles. I'm like, it's probably not open. I just kept going. I'm in a left-hand lane. I come around a small curve going to the right and downhill, and I never saw him. 24-year-old guy on a pedal bike was in the middle of my lane. And I'm driving 120. I didn't even have a chance to swerve my steering wheel. I didn't have a chance to hit the brakes, nothing. Slammed right into him. His body comes up over the hood of my car, smashes into my windshield, and bounces up and over and somewhere in the highway behind me.
Oh my God.
My windshield's destroyed, so I can't see anything. I use the left-hand side of the highway to figure out where I am. Pull over, hit my flashing lights to warn people that I'm there, and I call 911.
Yeah.
I am uninjured that I am aware of. My airbags didn't even go off because his body's not heavy enough. She checks me out. I'm fine other than the emotional shock of what just happened. And I have my emergency first aid. So I suggested, why don't I go back and at least find him and do something. See if he's alive. I don't know. I don't know anything.
Right.
So I start walking back, but I'm wearing a dark blue golf shirt and blue jeans, which means I'm not real visible. So it's a little dicey on me being out there with the moonless night. There's no light. You can't see anything other than your headlights. A little bit of light from the gas station is enough to see him. He's in the middle of the highway on the dash line. and his head facing oncoming traffic, and he's motionless.
Oh gosh.
I'm on the side of the highway across from him. I'm not, she said, don't go out there, it's too dangerous because I'm dark
Who are
clothing.
you talking with?
911.
Oh, you're on the phone.
I'm still on phone 911 the whole time.
I
right?
see.
She's guiding me through to help me.
Okay,
right?
sorry.
So no, it's good. So I'm on the side of the highway and just calling to him, nothing. She goes, wait, police will be shortly, because they're actually not far away, as it turns out. There's this town only a few miles away that has a police station. So they're on their way, and unfortunately lights came around the curve, mid-sized SUVs coming towards.
Oh God.
And I'm thinking, okay, I'll just flag them down, no big deal, I get some help.
Right.
Somebody can help me.
Right.
But it's so dark and it's a curve, they don't see me and they don't see him. They ran over him going on highway speed. So another collision. So and because the nature of laws of physics, they took him between the front tires, so he passed under the vehicle, but there's no space under a mid-sized SUV for a human body. So you hear the body rolling and clunking underneath the chassis as they drive over, and it takes his body from being head facing oncoming traffic, take a 180-degree flip, put him 7 feet in the air, 50 feet down the highway, launched him like an arrow following behind the vehicle as it kept going. Body lands and rolls and stops across the right-hand lane. The SUV braked for about 3 seconds and hit the gas and left. They freaked out. They panicked and they left. We never saw them again. So I'm in shock at this point, going, whoa, now what? Like my brain is just he's super dead. If the collision with me didn't kill him, that absolutely will, because it would have broke his neck, it would have cracked his skull, right?
My God, this poor human being. I'm really sorry.
And then I start walking towards my car. 911 operator went quiet for a bit, but she came back on and said, okay, get back to your car. It's not safe being where you are, because somebody will try to swerve to avoid him and could hit me.
Right.
So I'm walking back pretty quickly to get back to my car. And not a minute goes by. I haven't even gotten to the body yet. Big sound comes from behind me, lots of lights. A semi's coming around the curve.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the body's in the right-hand lane, and what lane is he driving in?
Oh my God.
No way he's going to avoid him. So I'm waving my arms trying to warn him, and didn't do any good. Took the body across the pelvis with the driver's side tires.
Okay, so let's move on to when do the police and everybody show up?
I got back to my car, got in, and it was only a few minutes later that they showed up. I could see the reflection in my rearview mirror. I got out to meet them. I didn't go anywhere near the body. I stayed at my car. Let them deal with what they're doing, and they performed CPR and stuff, but it wasn't going to do any good. He's absolutely dead. Police came over and gave kind of a report to them. They took me to the hospital to get me checked out to make sure I was okay. I had a cut on my right hand from putting my car in park. I grabbed glass. I shoved a piece of glass in my hand. Never felt it. But got me there, took it out, and not even a stitch to give me a Band-Aid. And then it was me trying to figure out, how do I get home? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to get charged? All these thoughts start running through your head.
Who this person was.
Who is he? Why was he there?
Yeah, in the middle of the night with no lights.
No reflectors on his clothing, no reflector on his bike, nothing.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
As it turns out, as we dug into it more with the evidence they had from the police report, they are 99% sure he was committing suicide.
Oh,
he had gone from the left side of the highway, which I was in that lane, good for him, not for me, and he just coasted out in front of me and I hit him. I had no way of avoiding him. It was impossible because he was trying. Right.
So that's very traumatic for you, I'm sure, and I feel terrible for this person's family, and we're sending them lots of love right now. Tell me though, how do you get home? Obviously, somehow you get home.
My parents came and got me, actually.
And then what?
It's trying to deal with the turmoil in my head. Because what is your body now going to do? What's your brain now going to do? It's trying to protect you, so it's going to warn you about anything like that happening again, which is just the reptilian brain doing what it does. So it's a whole lot of what ifs happening all the time. And your brain is on constant fire with thoughts, negative thoughts in most cases.
So did you go to see somebody right away? I pray you did,
I got into a psychologist a couple weeks later, but I also saw a life coach who was trained in neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And I used that to be able to come to terms with the memory of the accident, because one of the things that was happening is anytime I remembered or got a trigger that put me back to that that thought of what happened, it put me back into the same state I was in when it happened.
Right.
So the physical reaction was extensive.
I
Like
imagine.
increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, that
Right.
big lead ball in the middle of your chest you get from like a stress ball, they call it.
I'm
got
amazed you
really
can talk
bad.
about this even 3 years later in such a. So you've had some cognitive development on that one, I'm assuming.
Had to do that to be able to come to terms with what happened, because it's part of my reality. I could do hypnosis and try to bury it. There's no guarantee that it ever sticks, and I wasn't willing to do that. I'd rather face it and try and deal with where do I go from here, rather than try to bury something and try to pretend it didn't happen, because it did. Fact. Okay, somebody's dead from an accident I was involved in. Fact.
Right.
Okay, they're gone. Okay, now where do I go from here?
Right.
So I spent a lot of time doing that. It took several months of dealing with NLP, dealing with different self-care strategies I came up with that I found that it worked for me. Like I do it from lots of tools. Some of them I had from my days of the personal development, but not all of them. Some of them were new ones I had to pick up. Breathing techniques to be able to settle down my central nervous system was one of the bigger ones,
So
especially
do you do
early
yoga,
on.
or?
Not so much yoga, but a lot of meditation every morning, because mornings tended to be bad.
Yeah.
The last thing you think about before you go to sleep is what your subconscious works on for 8 hours over the night. Be careful what you think about. For me, I wake up in the morning in a panic. What was I thinking about? What's the primary thing in my brain up to that at that point?
Right.
The accident. So if I did that, my mornings were terrible.
Right. So you would do then some of your breathing.
I do my breathing, I do my meditation at
You
night.
gotta get out of bed.
Yeah.
You gotta roll yourself up there.
Yep. And gratitude's the biggest thing. Researchers found that you can't be grateful for things in your life and be in a negative state of mind at the same time. They're yin and yang.
Yeah.
So by being grateful and constantly being grateful, especially before I go to sleep, kept my brain off of that negative mentality so that I could sleep. And so I wouldn't wake up in the morning.
So you had a
huge
positive mantra going on in
to.
that head.
And it was over daily, every day, several times a day, trying to deal with anything that's a trigger.
Yeah.
Like driving obviously was a little interesting at night after it happened.
Yeah.
It was hard. I would go drive to work. I'm in the city, so there's streetlights, which makes it significantly easier than on the highway. But I'd drive by a store shop with a flash of light in the window was enough to trigger me to go from a state of my stress level is like 6 or 7 out of 10 all the time because of the accident. But as soon as something like that happens, or I get a email that's scathing at work, or I get somebody who says something, triggers me to a 10. Really, really
gets rid of that buffer you usually would have had.
Yeah, you usually have a buffer. That's all gone. So by going through that self-care process, I was able to temper that, and eventually over time, takes time, like anything.
Yeah.
I had to get
it
got
on
to a point. Yeah.
Man, it's only been a minute. Life's so quick.
Yeah. It took me 10 months before I was able to get to a point where I could talk about the accident. I did what most men do, and the whole alpha male mentality. Suck it up, deal with it, you're a man, big boys don't cry. That whole mentality,
Too
right?
big to do that.
Unfortunately, with something this big, it's like trying to bury it wasn't going to help, and it wasn't helping. I had a select few I talked to about it, but it was 10 months before I really told anybody what happened, because that fear of being labeled a killer. I didn't want to be labeled, and that scared me badly. I didn't want people thinking poorly of me because of something that happened. I'm not a killer. It was an accident, and it wasn't my fault.
And you had to come to terms with it maybe first.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I had to do, was stop using the word killer.
Yeah, no.
I had used that initially.
That was not a word that even came into my mind, actually.
Yeah, but that's one that I'd heard a couple of times.
No.
And it's just, that's hard to deal with, right?
I think that everything happens for a reason.
Correct.
So, I'm sorry that was given to you. But all of these things that are shitty that we get in our lives build something. It gives a callus, or it creates something in that brain of yours. Yeah. So what did it do for you?
10 months after the accident, I started writing my book.
A book?
I wanted to tell my story.
Okay.
I needed to get it out. And I thought about it and went, what a great way to put a book together on my experience. It's a lived experience. To help somebody else, right? Maybe. So that somebody else doesn't have the struggles that I had. I went in knowing nothing about how to deal with trauma. And I was thrown into the deep end big time, and I had to teach myself to swim, really, at the end of the day.
So how did you teach yourself? Like, what happened? So this accident happens. It takes 10 months before you're talking about it. You've seen a counselor who's helping you, and then you're like, let's write this book so I can tell people.
Yeah, and I became a certified life coach. I became a public speaker. This is now the 53rd time I've said this story in the last year.
Wow.
Since September of last year. I started September of last year starting to speak. And I do a lot of work with Schizophrenia Society. We show a connection between PTSD, which is what I ended up with trauma, and how a lot of the things that I do from a self-care perspective are also done by people with diagnosed illnesses.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a big difference.
It's like once you're hurt, you gotta like take care of that.
Yeah.
Like take care of that muscle.
And they do some fabulous work with that organization. It's not, contrary to the name, that's not just schizophrenia, right?
Okay.
They deal with anxiety, depression, you name it under the sun. Anything that's mental health related, they help with. They have support groups. They have all these things, and I commend them for what they do, and that's why I got involved with them, to be able to do the speaking with them to a lot of the groups that they talk to, and show the connection between how somebody just normal every day, not diagnosed with something, but can have something happen that drastically impacts you. How do you get through it?
And if we haven't been raised with tools to deal with emotions from the get-go, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. It's been really good. And being a certified coach, eventually I will start doing that as well. But right now I just tell my story. I use my story to help other people who want to reach out to me and say, hey, have a conversation. If there's something that I have been through with my self-care that can help you, I'm more than willing to share.
Right. That's really good. Like it's like you're using it to like bring out positives for others.
Yeah.
Wow.
Take a really bad experience and turn it into something that's going to help.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
So you're repeating the story. You're going around sharing, this experience. Where do you see yourself in like 5 years? Your book will have run its course? Do you see yourself in Regina still? Do you feel like, what will bring you joy then?
For me, bigger stage, more people.
Yeah. And
spread that message more. And I talk a lot about men's mental health because men don't talk, and I experienced that. After the accident, I had no desire to tell people. I did that for 10 months.
It's not
telling
healthy.
No one, but it really wasn't healthy. But having a lived experience and be able to connect with people to say, this is what I went through, and this is the real life part of it. This is not book stuff. It's not a counselor who's never experienced trauma who's trying to tell you about trauma, right? This is me telling you from my own experience. Yes, I'm not a counselor per se. So I have that proviso that, okay, no, I'm not going to try and cure you.
You're just saying your lived experience.
Here's something that might help you.
Yeah.
Is what I'm doing.
So you said you did a lot of breathing. What else did you do to work on yourself? Because I think those are really positive things that we could share today.
Yeah, meditation was pretty big for me. It's a way of being present in the moment, to be able to not live in your past. I needed to stop living in the past, like a timeline. There's 3 sections of the timeline. There's the past piece, there's the present, and then there's the future. For me, I can't live in that past because it kills me.
Right.
Almost literally could. Right? If I let it go into a depressive state, well, I could be suicidal before long, because it's difficult having been through what I went through.
Yes.
So it's like, get away from that, be in the present moment, which is what meditation does for me. I'm in the present moment now, in the here and now. I even meditate while I walk, be in nature, right? Noticing what's around me, noticing the little things, to be in the now. And then
present.
Always have my journaling as a part of what I do in the mornings, to go, today is going to be a great day because. But what does that do to your mindset? It puts you into a future state. Where am I going from here? What do I need to do to get better and to do something productive with my day, productive with my life, right? I'm not looking at top of the mountain. I'm looking at each individual step to get to the top, right? It's the little pieces of what you do every single day on an ongoing basis is the part that's going to make you better. You can't go, I'm going to be better tomorrow. No, it's not that easy, right? It's especially when dealing with something which is a significant trauma, you need to take it a piece at a time. Like the story goes from philosophy, right? How do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time.
Exactly.
Right? You can't take the whole thing.
No.
Right? You can't climb a mountain in one step. It takes little steps.
I think self-forgiveness and like resilience is really key to like stuff like this too. I imagine, you know, as you get more space from the actual event too, because really 3 years to me is very like quick, you know. 3 years. Whew. I still have shirts that are 3 years old in my like closet. I really commend you though for talking about you know, how that experience affected you and how you're helping yourself to get better.
Resilience, I think, is one of the key things. I never give up. You're always going to backtrack at some point. Something's going to trigger you that's going to set you back. It's part of being in a personal development realm where you're not always going to be constantly progressing. Like anything in life, when you're trying to learn something that you haven't really learned before, you're going to have setbacks.
Right.
It's going to drop you back. I have days still that the whole day is like, my mood is awful. I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel like that hits me. But
so what do you do?
That's where I tap into my tools.
So what are your tools?
Right. Breathing right off the bat is one of the biggest ones for settling my central nervous system down.
Totally.
Settling down that feeling in my chest that's so bad, right? Box breathing. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. And you do that as a repetitive cycle of 4 seconds each piece, right?
It's amazing how breathing can just center you though.
Yeah, and that's a big one for me during the day. And then perspective is always in what did I try to do. For example, when you're driving, somebody cuts you off, what's your normal instinct? You get upset. You get upset, you honk the horn, you flip on the bird, you get mad, right? All that sort of thing. But what is that really doing for the situation other than making you worse?
I had an experience in my life that was traumatizing for sure. We don't need to get into it, but look, just trust me. It changed my perspective on how I think about things. Yeah. And I remember just last winter, somebody, I had my brand new car. I've talked about this before, new to me car. Yeah. And it's my baby. And I like freaking love my Mini. It's a Mini. It's cherry red and it's super fun and goes fast. And somebody backed out of their driveway, smacked me good, right into my front corner. It was icy and kind of like braked and slid. And anyways, the mom that hit me was so upset. And I was like, seriously, it is not a big deal. We're both okay. The bumpers might be a little mangled, but like in reality, like this is nothing. And I think that perspective that I have saves me so much stress now, because it's just like, you know, it's just a thing, or like we have the choice to be upset over things, or we have the choice to get upset. It's our reaction. And I tell you, it's given me, I paid thousands of dollars in therapy to get here. But it definitely, when you've gone through something, the perspective thing, the farther out you're from it, it is like the best tool. Because I feel bad that you went through that, but I think that you've taken something that's a negative and you're truly making it a positive, and you're moving forward with it in such grace.
Yeah. Definitely trying.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. Do you have any other speaking engagements coming up that we can promote? Do you have anything you want, your book that we could share, where they can find it?
Driving Out of Darkness is the name of my book. Is that Chapters?
Is that Chapters?
Chapters, yeah. It's on 13th at a Warehouse. It's a small bookstore. Yes. And Penny University bookstore also has it. Local. Yeah, I like trying to promote the smaller stores too, not just like a big one like Chapters. I try to put my books in other places, right? Such and Stuff on McCarra Street with all the crystals and everything. Yeah, my book is there. Yeah,
a warehouse as well.
Yeah. And then we've got Amazon. So it's available basically anywhere in the world. People have Amazon all the time. Totally. It's easy to find there. Yeah. Driving Out of Darkness is the name of the book. This is a play on words of what happens. So,
well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Well,
and
thank you
guys jump in, read the book. I will put a link to it on my video blog for you guys to check that out. So if you want to find it. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you again next week. Take care out there. Bye now.